Alright, we're gonna try this out. I tried it out earlier and I felt like I was kind of all over the place, so I am gonna try to do it in a more bullet point manner, I guess you could say. Okay, so going off last video, I stated that I went to my final OB/GYN, and which was technically only a GYN. Anyway, we did a laparoscopy for endometriosis, and I found out that I had stage 4. It was on everything. It was on all over the outside of my uterus, clogged my fallopian tubes. Nothing could get through. It was on my bladder, bowels, liver, gallbladder, appendix, intestines, and it got into like my esophagus. I was having really bad heartburn issues, and it had to be removed from all of those areas via ablation. Now there's some controversy that ablation is not the way to go. Excision, which ablation is burning, excision is cutting out, is the way to go to cut it out. I had a great experience with ablation. They said that it can force it to come back stronger because they're not getting to the root of it. You're just burning the top layer. I had a really great doctor, I'm not gonna lie, and that's what worked best for me. But in the future, if I had to get the surgery again, I would definitely research my options for excision. If it like affected me in the future or affected me being able to carry a baby, definitely would consider that. But I'm going to start out by telling you guys what it is. Endometriosis is your uterine lining. When you shed it every month for your period, it flows backwards through your fallopian tubes and into your pelvic anatomy, and then it just works itself all over your body after there's no place for it to go after a long time of it being there. And then every month when you're getting ready to menstruate and your uterus is ready to clear itself of its old lining, it will do the same thing in the rest of your body. Your hormones tell it to do the same thing, but there's nowhere for it to go. So it just gets inflamed and really uncomfortable and just attaches itself to things, and you have a lot of pain. And my entire life, I had pretty difficult periods. They weren't a walk in the park by any means, but they weren't like I could still function. It was awful, but I assumed that that's just how everybody's periods were. I did mention it to the OBs I had in the beginning, and they just kind of thought that that was normal. But it ended up being like really bad for my health other than fertility. Like eventually, I'll never forget, like a year before I found out I had a diagnosis, we were going somewhere, and I was getting sick, and my dad was like, geez, you're like getting sick a lot, like are you okay? And I'm like, I feel fine, otherwise I don't know what the problem was. Well, it was because the endometriosis was on my intestines, and it was just causing, I was like PMSing before, like I hadn't gotten my period yet, and it was starting to swell up, so it was causing me to get sick. And just looking back, it caused a lot of other problems. Like I felt like I could never fly anywhere. I don't know if it was the pressure or what, but I would get sick every time I flew. I was getting horrible heartburn. For a 22 and 23-year-old, I couldn't drink water at night. I would get car sick all the time. I had horrible anxiety, and that is also a contributing factor because it's throwing off your entire hormonal balance. It affects your thyroid. It affects your prolactin in your brain. It affects all of those things because everything is not where it should be. I would get nervous about everything. And I kind of had a harder job at the time, and I just got married, so like there was a lot going on, so I just thought it was that. But after years of living through those things and figuring out what it was, I realized that I am not like as stressed of a person when I feel good. Like when I feel good, things go good. So I know that really contributed to that. So in my surgery, they had a video. I have tried to get the video. I have not been able to get it yet, and I have to drive to go get it, and it's like an hour away. So I would love to eventually show that, just so people could see what was going on in there. But he did tell me I had stage 4. There are 4 stages. Basically a very mild form of it, a mild to moderate form, a moderate form, and a very severe form. Mine was severe, and it was, when he told me what it was like depressing at the same time as it was like relieving, because I knew this whole time something was wrong, and I know what it is, but then he tells me what it is and how bad it is, and like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to have kids or anything, but he said he cleared it out and it was ready to go. I had some other stumbles. I will go through that later, but yes, so it was pretty intense. I fortunately didn't have any cysts at the time, but I know I've had them before, because I had like the symptoms of an endometrial cyst, just like random spotting and horrible cramping that had nothing to do with my period. And I've heard of like stories of people having these like football sized, like they can get huge, and then the bleeding is just insane. Also, I know one thing that has affected the bleeding and the endometriosis, like this caused this, is my uterus doesn't clamp on its own. Like when you go into labor to have a baby, you start to contract. Well, mine just doesn't do that, and it doesn't do that during a period either. I don't cramp really bad. I just like bleed, and it's super unhealthy, and I usually lose a lot of blood. I know that might be TMI, but like it's caused my uterus not to do what it's supposed to, and because of that, I almost if I wouldn't have been in a C-section situation, I don't know what would have happened, because I started to bleed out. Fortunately, it was there and they could see it, but if it was inside me and I just had Andy, I don't know what would have happened. I had to get a blood transfusion, and my periods have always kind of been like that, and my postpartum journey was really hard because of that as well. I ended up bleeding for like 11 weeks, which is way longer than people typically do. They usually like bleed half of that time. So I know that the endometriosis has like damaged me in that aspect, and I'm trying every avenue I can to either heal it or make it better. With that being said, I will say that this medical medium, information I've been sharing has helped a lot. This was the first period that I have never had to take anything to make myself cramp. I usually have to within the first 2 days, or it is like horrific, every hour, changing things, like it's bad. This is the first period I haven't had to do that, and the first period I haven't had that overwhelming bloating sensation that I get from losing all that blood at that time. So that's like huge. It was one of the most normal things I've felt since before that laparoscopy. And it's funny because right after that laparoscopy, I felt amazing for like 2 months, and then I started doing fertility medications, and I think that just kind of put things out of whack where they needed to be. Couple other things with endometriosis: if you don't know you have it and you're kind of like trying to self-diagnose yourself to go see a doctor to see if it's even worth it, you're gonna have, my periods were so regular it wasn't even funny, like to the date, 28 days. So that can still be you, but I had some really hard periods, and I obviously wasn't getting pregnant. But you can have breakthrough bleeding, which can be bleeding throughout the month. I had that all the time. A lot of illness, like nauseous, stomach issues, etc. That could also be you. Like random hormonal pains, like breast pain and like underarm pain, like because my hormones were not where they were supposed to be. Thyroid issues. My thyroid has been somewhat normal, but it's been like all over the place. Like things aren't adding up. Like my hair will like go through these phases where when I know that they're out of whack, and it'll like crimp. Or I'll like sweat all the time. Like there's so many things that it affects. So if that's you and you're feeling kind of out of whack, I would recommend getting checked out for that. And again, like I've posted in the last couple videos, advocate for yourself. If someone's not giving you answers, go somewhere else or push to get an answer. Somebody will give you one and you don't want to wait. If I would have waited, I was 23 when I had this surgery and it was stage 4. If I would have waited till now, even if it wasn't on a fertility standpoint, if you're not ready to be a parent yet or you don't want to be a parent, totally fine. But on a health standpoint, I don't know how bad it could have gotten. It was working its way into my bladder. And he told me that if he wouldn't have got it out then, there would not have been a surgery that could have done it without risking me like ruining my bladder and not being able to hold it correctly. So that like scared me, and the fact that that is happening and there's not a lot of medical research out there that is trying to figure out why this is happening or trying to stop it is just crazy to me. I know that it's something you can live with, but I think it really is affecting some of these girls out there. Like I think of myself, if I would have waited till I was like 28 to even get looked at, I don't know what the prognosis could be. They say it also affects your fertility because it gives that area a very inflammatory environment, so that it's not calm, it's not relaxing for embryos to implant. And there are also some studies saying that if you're going to do IVF, you shouldn't get a laparoscopy. I disagree, only because I don't think I would have ever been able to have Andy if I didn't have that surgery, because my pelvis was so distorted. Like there's one side of my uterus attached to another side from scar tissue from endometriosis, and then it was twisted this way. I just don't think my body could have supported a pregnancy like in a healthy way. Like I'm so fortunate that Andy is healthy and I had a good pregnancy up until like my C-section situation, but I think we would have struggled a lot more. However, I have read, and I do agree with this, my egg count after having her was an amazing egg count, but the quality of my eggs was horrible for a 24-year-old. So I think, and I've read that endometrial surgery can affect your egg quality. So, I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So I think like either way I would have went, I would have had some struggles. Obviously, you have to do what's best for you, but the endometrial surgery really helped me. But now that I am venturing into like these testimonies of these women going through these lifestyle changes and diet changes and home changes, and making these huge goals of theirs to get rid of infertility, and it working because they cut out all this horrible stuff, I'm very interested in that, because to have another child, I do not want to go through that surgery again. But with that being said, I don't ever think that I will be able to do a natural pregnancy. I could. I'm not going to say I'm not going to. But the reasoning why, which is another part of endometriosis that I totally figured out later by putting like pieces together. When I was having my C-section, my doctor kept saying, "Oh my gosh, it's a heart, it's a heart, it's a heart." And I was kind of freaking out. I'm like, "What are you talking about? What, like, is it hers? Is it mine? What, is there something else in there? Like, what is going on?" He was referring to my uterus being shaped like a heart, which that means that I have a bicornuate uterus. And he's like, "Did you know that you had that?" And I'm like, "I did not." A bicornuate uterus is a genetic anomaly or abnormality that a lot of people have, and sometimes they don't know they have it. I was technically diagnosed with a partial bicornuate uterus, and I didn't know this until after I had a baby. A bicornuate uterus, just in general, can cause infertility because of how it how it's shaped. So like you have a normal uterus. I'm just gonna like say it's kind of like it's like flat at the top, and then it's like a ball, and then you have your tubes that come out the side, and then you have your cervix, and then your vaginal canal. Well, this one, it's almost like, it's like a heart, and there's like a septum down the middle, so you have like a third of the room to house and basically create and implant a baby than a normal person. And then on top of that, the tubing out the side that goes to your fallopian tubes is like 5 times as big as normal tubes. So it's so much easier for endometriosis to form because your uterine tissue is having a much easier time flowing out the back as opposed to flowing out where it's supposed to. So I had no idea that affected endometriosis, and I had no idea that I had it. And the reason that I know it's a partial and why they told me that is because via ultrasound, my uterus looks somewhat normal. Like, the shape looks normal. I have a decent amount of room. So I have probably 2/3 the amount of a normal uterus as opposed to the 1/3, but then I still don't have the whole one. So I'm very convinced that is also another reason why I've had fertility issues, but it's come to my attention that a lot of girls with bicornate uterus, almost all of them, have endometriosis. So that obviously is genetic, which I then find out that my mom's mom had it, my mom's sister had it, my dad's mom had it, my dad's sister had it, and then my dad's sisters all had it. And then their daughters had it, and some of them never got to have kids because it was farther back in the past when we didn't have the technology or knowledge that we do now. So I'm obviously thinking that this genetic abnormality has come to me because my uterus is not shaped correctly. I'm not saying that every girl with endometriosis has this problem, but I think it's really common with the girls that have endometriosis. Anyway, next thing I wanted to talk about was there are other, I guess this goes along with it, but there are other forms of uterine abnormality, and I find it super funny that I bounced around to all these gynecologists. I had surgery, so I went back and looked at my surgical notes because I wanted to see if this guy thought that I had a bicornate uterus and that contributed to my endometriosis. He did not say I had a bicornate uterus. He said I had an abnormally shaped uterus. But I was never told this. I think that it was so close to being the same size as a regular uterus that they just kind of blew it off. But I feel like this is like a huge thing for me, and it very much so concerns me for the future of women. And then, like, for example, my child, I was so afraid to have a girl, and I love having a girl now. It was so meant to be. I love being a girl mom. I have so much fun. She is the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. But I was so afraid when I found out that I was having a girl because I don't want her to go through this. And if I'm carrying this genetic abnormality, I don't want her to have it. And there's really not a way to find out until she can get an ultrasound. But this segues me back to the fact that I never had a vaginal ultrasound to find out if I had a bicornate uterus until I was getting surgery, and then it was documented as slightly abnormally sized, and then I don't find out until after I have a baby. I think that was just, I'm just blown away that was missed, because when you have a bicornate uterus or a unicornate uterus, which means you only have one side, or you could not have a uterus at all. I have done research upon research finding out and reading forums and testimonies that this happens all the time, that people are born with these genetic abnormalities and they don't find out for years or a year or a very long time because nobody ever gave them an ultrasound until much longer down the road. I never had an ultrasound from any of these people. So if you are me, push for that ultrasound. Push for it, because I feel like if I would have known some of this stuff sooner, I would have at least been able to deal with it or make some changes. Going forward with that, this genetic abnormality is like on the rise. Like a lot of people are saying that they have this, which they're leading it back to our environmental factors and our food and everything. So I feel like the medical medium has something going for him when he talks about that, because some of his testimonies and some of his logic behind it just totally fits what we're going through now as a society. And infertility is like on the rise, and I think it has a lot to do with these environmental factors. My mom's uterus is fine though, as far as I know, and I just think it's crazy that I did not know this about myself until I was giving birth. And then the part that drives me nuts is that having a bicornate or unicornate uterus puts you at a high risk pregnancy because you don't have the proper space to carry a child. I was not even considered high risk, and I had endometriosis, and I was an IVF pregnancy, but because I had enough room for her in there, every appointment they measured. I went to a doctor that gave me an ultrasound every appointment, so they looked at her every time, they looked at my fluid every time, they looked at the room, and everything was normal. I didn't swell up until the last month, and I had normal blood pressure, so I had technically a normal pregnancy, but this entire time, I had a bicornate uterus, and that could have caused like major health issues for me or my baby. So going forward, I think I would never be able to do a natural pregnancy because IVF places the baby in a very, very specific spot, like the most ideal spot for them to grow. And with a natural pregnancy, if, let's say I could do it, I think I would have a really high chance of an ectopic pregnancy or pregnancy in the wrong spot that could cause pregnancy issues. Other than that, I'm a little concerned about the endometriosis affecting like a future pregnancy, or the bicornate uterus affecting the future pregnancy. But I plan to meet with my IVF doctor in January. I'm still going to be doing this healthy lifestyle and making all these changes and hopefully creating some healthy embryos. We'll see. I don't know what to expect there, but I'm going to meet with him and we're going to go over my past paperwork. I already had one meeting with him, and he has a similar protocol as last time, a little bit different, and that I will go into my original protocol in that video, and then once I get past the first syllabus, I want to take you guys along my second journey, like do videos and stories of me going and just kind of take you along for the ride. I feel like I missed out on doing that the first time because I was so nervous, but I think that's the best way to document it. Anyway, I think that with my history at IVF is just going to be the safest, most comfortable way for me, no matter the cost. So the endometriosis has really put a lot of things in the back burner for us because of everything it's caused. And if you're me and you don't know you have it and you're having a hard time getting pregnant, please reach out to somebody because they can help you. There's so many influencers and girls out there going through the same thing, and they can give you their advice or their support or just there to listen. Every girl that had it when I was starting to go through this journey answered me and replied and gave me so much support and help, and I never felt alone. And that's like my point of doing this, is that it's such a hard thing to go through. And if you don't know that you have it, push for ultrasounds, laparoscopies, blood work, push for it. And make these lifestyle changes. I'm not trying to sell you guys anything. I'm not advocating for somebody else. I'm just telling you what has worked for me, and to tell you that this is a really serious condition, and if you don't take the proper steps and precautions going forward, it's only going to get worse. And a lot of doctors don't take it very seriously, so push. Advocate for yourself and your future family. So, that's my endometriosis spiel. I don't want to get off on another tangent with it. But you're not alone if you're feeling like you do have it, or if you know that you have it, or if you're struggling with fertility because of it. But I promise you there are answers and support and solutions that are being worked on out there, and I'm gonna do my best to try to document that the best I can and my journey moving forward. So I hope you like this one. It's a little bit longer. I really like 10-15 minutes, but I feel like this is a big video and I had to explain my story in depth so that if you guys are in the beginning stages of your journey, that you can know what to look for. Have a good night, guys.